Putting aside the last 13 minutes of last week's episode, this may be one of the best episodes yet. I'm Funkmaster Freedom, let me tell you why. So despite not having any action, it also didn't have any Quan. It was a much more coherent story. They didn't jump back and forth between what's happening here and there and here and there and here and there. They stuck to one story, and they told it. This episode focuses on Master Chief and the UNSC's response to their devastating loss on Aridness 2. The episode starts with Master Chief still trying to come to terms with all the information he found out back on Aridness. He goes as far as to almost kill Halsey, trying to figure out just how much Cortana can control his body. He locks Halsey into a room and activates some protocol that's going to flood the room with a bunch of radiation and just tells Cortana, stop me then. Cortana can't. She said all she can do is shut down his nervous system and put him into a stasis. She can't actually control his actions. He ends up saving Halsey and getting her out of there. Saving Halsey. You can't really get credit for saving somebody when you're the one who's trying to kill her in the first place, but still. He let her out of there and basically said, watch your back because I'm not going to save you from what's coming next. I'm pretty sure I've been saying Mackie this whole time, but in a meeting to find out what to do with McKee, you get this gem from a bunch of high-ranking officials in the UNSC.
To save Marine lives.
It's the mission that matters, not the Marine.
I can only imagine that it's sentiment like that leads to news articles like this and memes like this. If you're one of the people that struggle with these things, make sure you call this number. Get the help you need. They ultimately decided to let Master Chief speak to McKee in order to find out whether or not she's a threat. But while speaking to Master Chief, she informs him that she's also a blessed one. She went through a lot of the same stuff. The Covenant used to force the Keystones on her so that she would have those visions. And that fighting that made her physically ill, just like it's doing John in this episode. And the only way to get past that is to let the Keystones do what they need to do. And then ultimately they become your weapon, is what she says. This girl's acting is way too good, though. If I didn't already know her backstory, I would 100% believe that she was a refugee, just trying to get help. Hell, even if she hadn't killed the Marines on that ship and you only saw her interactions with the Prophets, I would believe that she was on the human side. It is so good. She's so believable. She's definitely going to fool the Master Chief and pull a fast one on everybody. And I'm going to be so mad when she does it. Because things went sideways on Aridness, the head honchos want somebody to blame for what happened. So Parangoski's using this as an opportunity to get rid of Halsey, as she's been a huge thorn in her side the whole show. And you see that they offer up Halsey to a JAG interview. Master Chief interrupts this interview, saying he needs the room, and Halsey lays everything out on the table. Tells him from beginning to end what happened, why it happened, blah, blah, blah. Also, in the future, they have this really cool interrogation room where there's no like glass one-way mirror that you see in the movies. They have a little circle they put on their forehead and allows them to be in the room digitally without the people in the room knowing they're there. So Parangoski and Keyes are watching the interview as Master Chief's being told all of this. In the middle of it, Miranda Keyes walks in and learns how big of a monster her mother really is. Once Halsey and John are done talking, Parangoski has Halsey arrested and sent off to a different lab, where that's where she's going to stay from now on, and hands the Spartan program over to Miranda Keyes. And we think we've gotten rid of her. However, once Master Chief leaves the room, he has a really big panic attack, starts to break down. Cortana shows up, and he starts asking Cortana who she works for. She says, I don't know how to answer that question. He says, the first chance I get, I'm cutting you out of my head, and tells her to kick rocks. And it's clear that he wants no part of her being in his head anymore. So with Master Chief leaving Cortana out to dry, and Halsey no longer having access to the Reach's database, Cortana has no place to go. So what does she do? She hacks her way through all the networky nonsense, and goes back to Halsey, and helps her get access back to the UNSC stuff on Reach. We were so close to getting rid of her. But there is still good news and amazing things in this episode. With Miranda Keyes now in charge of the Spartan program, she analyzes John's DNA against McKee's DNA and find out that they're like 2 in a billion. They share similar DNA, and they're the only ones that have it. This leads John to want to go back and touch the original Keystone that they have. And upon doing so, he starts to have a meltdown. Everybody reading his vital signs think he's dying, including Halsey, because Cortana helped her get access to that, so Halsey can see this whole experiment they're running. But not only is John dying, McKee's dying also. Their vital signs match perfectly. It's very dyad-y in the Force, and I don't really like that, but we'll run with it. But as their vitals start to come down and normalize, you find that their consciousness seems to be linked. They're both standing in a field. They can touch each other, despite being in different rooms. And then the camera kind of pans out and zooms up, and you realize they're standing on the halo. It's gorgeous. The visual effects people for this show are amazing. I would have preferred different music behind it. It seemed very lackluster with the music they chose, but still, it was an amazing sight. I was worried after how great last week's episode was they were going to have trouble delivering a good episode this week, but they did it. It was a good episode. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to episode 7. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you can see next week's video on episode 7. See you then.